This is new evidence that the Great Pyramids of Egypt might have been made of stone blocks that were cast and not quarried. This is on Humans Are Free. Quote, "This is not my job," unquote, begins Michel Barsoum as he recounts his foray into the mysteries of the Great Pyramids of Egypt. As a well-respected researcher in the field of ceramics, Barsoum never expected his career to take him down the path of history and archaeology and political science with materials research mixed in. As a distinguished professor in the Department of Material Science and Engineering at Drexel University, his daily routine consists mainly of teaching students about ceramics or performing research on a new class of material, the so-called max phases, that he and his colleagues discovered in the 1990s. And these modern ceramics are machinable, thermal shock resistant, and are better conductors of heat and electricity than many metals, making them potential candidates for use in nuclear power plants, the automotive industry, jet engines, and a range of other high-demand systems. But here we have pictures of the ground-level block in front of the Great Pyramid of Khufu in the Giza pyramids. It includes an irregular lip at the bottom that would have been very hard and somewhat pointless to carve. This lip indicates that the block was cast in place, the material in the lip having slid out under the temporary wooden mold before hardening. Barsoum analyzed a piece of material from the bottom lip and says he did not find smoking gun evidence. Quote, "The only logical conclusion is that after 5,000 years, the binding phase has basically been washed away. Solution? Get samples from the core of that block. Easier said than done, though," end quote. This is an image by Michel Barsoum via Alex Wright. Now, then Barsoum received an unexpected phone call from Michael Carrel, a friend of a retired colleague of Barsoum, who called to chat with the Egyptian-born Barsoum about how much he knew of the mysteries surrounding the building of the Great Pyramids of Giza and the only remaining of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. The accepted theory that the pyramids were crafted of carved-out giant limestone blocks that workers carried up the ramps had not only been embraced by everyone, but, as important, had quite a number of holes. Well, I remember that it's written in the Bible that they were casting bricks. They were not carving blocks. But anyway, I guess some people thought that they were made up of limestone blocks. So if they're not limestone blocks, what were they cast from? Now, according to the caller, the mysteries had actually been solved by Joseph Davidovitz, a director of the Geopolymer Institute in Saint-Quentin, France, more than 20 years ago. Davidovitz claims that the stones of the pyramids were actually made of a very early form of concrete created using a mixture of limestone, clay, lime, and water. Quote, "It was at that point in the conversation that I burst out laughing," end quote. That's what Barsoum said. "If the pyramids were indeed cast," he said, "someone should have proven it beyond a doubt by now, in this day and age with just a few hours of electron microscopy. And it turned out that nobody had completely proven that theory yet." Quote, "What started as a 2-hour project turned into a 5-year odyssey that I undertook with one of my graduate students, Ardish Ganguly, and a colleague in France, Gilles Houg," said Barsoum. A year and a half later, after extensive scanning with electron microscope observations and other testing, Barsoum and his research group finally began to draw some conclusions about how the pyramids were built. They found that the tiny structures within the inner and outer casing stones were indeed consistent with the reconstituted limestone. The cement binding the limestone aggregates was either silicon oxide, the building block of quartz, or a calcium and magnesium-rich silicate mineral. The stones also had a very high water content, unusual for the normally dry natural limestone found in the Giza Plateau. And the cementing phases in both the inner and outer casing stones were amorphous. In other words, their atoms were not arranged in a regular and periodic array. Sedimentary rocks such as limestone are seldom, if ever, amorphous. The sample chemistries the researchers found do not exist anywhere in nature. Quote, therefore, Barsoum said, it's very important that the outer and inner casing stones that we examined were chiseled from a natural limestone block, end quote. And it's also even more startling. Barsoum and another of his graduate students, Aaron Sekulic, recently discovered the presence of silicon oxide nanoscale spheres with diameters only a billionth of a meter across in one of the samples. This discovery further confirms that these blocks are not natural limestone. And generations misled. At the end of their most recent paper reporting these findings, the researchers reflect that it's ironic, sublime, and truly humbling that this 4,500-year-old limestone is so true to the original that it has misled generations of Egyptologists and geologists, and because the ancient Egyptians were the original, albeit unknowing, nanotechnologists, end quote. As if the scientific evidence isn't enough, Barsoum has pointed out a number of common sense reasons why the pyramids were not likely constructed entirely of the chiseled limestone blocks. Egyptologists are consistently confronted by unanswered questions. How is it possible that some of the blocks are so perfectly matched that not even a human hair can be inserted between them? Why, despite the existence of millions of tons of stone, carved presumably with copper chisels, has not one copper chisel ever been found in the Giza Plateau? Although Barsoum's research has not answered all these questions, his work provides insight into some of the key questions. For example, is it now more likely than not that the tops of the pyramids are cast, as it would have been increasingly difficult to drag the stones up to the summit? Also, casting would explain why some of the stones fit so closely together. Still, as with the great mysteries, not every aspect of the pyramids can be explained. How the Egyptians hoisted 70-ton granite slabs halfway up the Great Pyramid remains as mysterious as ever. Why do the results of Barsoum's research matter most today? 2 words: earth cements. Quote, how energy intensive and or complicated can a 4,500-year-old technology really be? The answer to both questions is not very. Barsoum explains the basic raw materials used for this early form of concrete, limestone, lime, and diatomaceous earth, can be found virtually anywhere in the world, he adds. Quote, replicating this method of construction would be cost-effective, long-lasting, and much more environmentally friendly than the current building material of choice. Portland cement, that alone pumps roughly 6 billion tons of CO2 annually into the atmosphere when it's manufactured. End quote. Ironically, Barsoum said, this study of 4,500 years old rocks is not about the past, but about the future. End quote. This by Sheila Berninger and Dorilona Rose from Live Science, and it's on Humans Are Free. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.